It took 2 votes, but the Universities of Wisconsin Board of Regents approved a DEI plan brokered by UW leadership and legislative Republicans. The plan reduces system diversity positions in exchange for releasing funding lawmakers withheld from the system this year. That includes budgetary pay raises and funding for construction projects, like a new engineering building at UW-Madison. Regent Amy Blumenfeld-Bogus voted against the Republican-backed offer on December 9th. After a closed session this past Tuesday, her vote changed. During Wednesday's vote, she voted to accept the offer. She said the board still does have a commitment to diversity.
We will hold their feet to the fire on this, and by adopting this resolution, it does not reduce or eliminate that accountability for them or for us.
When System President Jay Rothman was asked about what this could mean for future deals between UW and the state, he said it's about being willing to compromise. Well, the system's DEI positions have been a major topic of discussion for months. And when I sat down for end-of-year interviews with Senate Majority Leader LeMahieu and former Senate Minority Leader Melissa Agard, we dug into that issue. But we also talked legislative priorities and what they perceive to be this session's biggest wins for Wisconsin. We'll begin with Senator LeMahieu. End of the year is coming up fast, the end of session shortly after that. So before we look ahead and we talk about current events, let's look at what's happened this past session. What are some big wins that you could point to that the legislature has gotten for Wisconsinites?
I think we actually had a really good session this year. We got the largest increase in shared revenue for local governments in a long time, the largest increase in K-12 funding, expansion of school choice. We're keeping the Brewers here for another 20 years. So, I think it was a really productive session so far. I think the only thing that we sort of missed out on is getting a real tax cut for the taxpayers of Wisconsin, leaving $4 billion in our bank account until we do the next budget.
I want to talk about that. Is there another tax proposal coming down the pipeline here from Republicans before the session ends?
It seems that the governor, even though in past sessions he was willing to cut taxes on that tax bracket, which encompasses most Wisconsin families, that he's unwilling to do that right now. I'm not sure why, but he's vetoed 2 or 3 times already that middle class tax cut that we put on his desk. And if he's willing to negotiate with us on reasonable changes, we can hopefully get that tax cut done. But it's not going to be large expansion of government that we trade for a tax cut. It's just when you have too much money, especially after the budget we passed, which made huge investments in so many areas, in healthcare and transportation and K-12 education and all across the board. We made huge investments, and now it's time, and we have money left over. It's the taxpayers' money, so we need to give that money back to the taxpayers.
Have you spoken personally with the governor about tax reform?
I spent the fall session working on some bills that I knew the governor supported, such as the alcohol bill, the Brewers bill, things like that. So it was great that we were sort of on the same page working on these items, but I haven't talked to him about specifically a tax cut.
Is there a possibility that the two of you or the stakeholders in the legislature can get in a room and just hash this out?
Yeah, I hope so. There's plenty of time left in the spring session, so hopefully that can get done.
Are you going to reach out to the governor's office?
I'm sure I will at some point.
Okay. So this year, Democrats pushed to fund the Child Care Counts program with that record budget surplus we just talked about here. Republicans have been against that. You have said the surplus should be used for tax reform. But if there can't be a deal on tax reform, is there an opportunity to use that budget surplus for something else?
The child care accounts, that was a federal program, which was a sort of short-term fix during COVID. We think that just putting money into, what I think is just putting money into healthcare facilities, many of which have waiting lists that are 2-3 years long, doesn't actually solve the problem. Trying to find new child care facilities or subsidizing those who actually can't afford child care rather than just plugging it into a facility could be the solution. And working on our regulation, where our child care centers in Wisconsin are way more regulated than a lot of our neighboring states, so making sure that a small child care provider can expand their services and take care of those children.
That Republican-authored package of child care bills cleared the Assembly. Are there the votes to pass it in the Senate?
You know, they went really fast through the Assembly, and we're taking a good look at them. I think there's some really good things in those bills, but we just need to make sure that they're clean and make sense.
Let's talk about some of the other issues that have defined the second half of the session here. This past week, the Universities of Wisconsin Board of Regents approved a plan to cut DEI positions throughout the system in exchange for funding. This comes after they rejected it a first time. What do you think changed?
I think, as I've said all along, it's important to get that engineering building done, something that many members of the Senate were pushing for. That's creating real jobs that businesses need in Wisconsin. It's drawing people into the state and hopefully keeping those young people here to work in businesses. And also, you know, the vast majority of UW employees have nothing to do with the DEI policies of the university or the social policies and things like that. They're just coming in to work every day, whether it's cutting the grass, doing maintenance, food service, whatever. And so it was important to get those raises done. And it's great that the regents actually focused on the broader picture and not just focusing on, you know, woke liberal agenda.
You, before the vote, before even the first vote, you had made this comment that, you know, you didn't agree with Speaker Voss's decision to withhold those pay raises, and then you support funding for the engineering building. So why have them be part of this DEI fight at all? Why not just have them, even just those pieces, taking away all the other things that the universities are getting in this plan? Why include them at all if you don't agree?
Yeah, I think the first vote by the regents just highlighted sort of how out of touch maybe some of them are, is that they're choosing just a couple of positions across the entire university versus raises for everybody versus investment in an engineering building. It just highlighted that they're not focusing on making the university the best university they can and just focusing on sort of things that have absolutely nothing to do with education.
There had been talk this past week of the Senate potentially firing a couple of the unconfirmed regents. Will the Senate still move forward on that?
You know, we'll take each regent, as we do all confirmations by the governor. We'll look at them each individually. We'll do our due diligence, and we'll talk to the caucus and see where everybody's at.
A lot of companies in the private sector have DEI positions, but they're not under fire by Republicans in Wisconsin. Why is that?
Well, we don't fund private industry.
So that's the position, is state legislature doesn't want to publicly fund DEI and not in the private sector then. A lot of these students, though, will enter the private sector and then they'll be exposed to these DEI positions, which you say is part of a woke liberal ideology. So why? You
know, I'm not going to tell a private business how to run their business.
Sure.
It's up to a private business owner and their board of directors or owner to decide how they're going to run their business.